Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, hey, welcome into the program. If you're listening to us via the radio, the podcast, the YouTube video, hey, any way that you choose to listen to Computer America, thank you so much. And today on the program, I'm your host, Ben, and I should probably get used to saying this. I'm your host, Ben, and of course, my co-host. She needs to get to use those too, so we're going to wait. And I also forcefully muted her in Zoom, so that probably doesn't help either. So she's going to have to hit the button. Ladies and gentlemen, we are still practicing this. So here we go. And our co-host, new co-host, if you haven't had the pleasure, Carissa. And Carissa, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you? Sorry, I had to figure out how to unmute myself there.
You're good. And and trust me, there's tons of things to work out. But you know what? We're gonna get it. And hey, I'm really happy that you could be the new co-host of Computer America. So again, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And so with that being said, everyone out there, before we get to our guest, who, of course, one day shifted, and that is partially my fault, but he's very, very gracious in helping us, kind of be flexible with the show, Mr. Mike Cermak on every first Wednesday, asterisk, of the month, and we have a ton of topics that we're going to talk about. Mike, how you doing?
I love that you spoke an asterisk. That was awesome.
It needed to be said because obviously today is Thursday, but there you go. So everyone, that voice is none other than Mike Cermak. He is probably our longest running correspondent here on Computer America, and we're very happy to have him on. And hey,
do you really think I am the longest running one? I wanted like an award for that.
Sure, Carissa, that's your job now. But yeah, she has to mold it out of metal herself. But I'm trying to think, and the only one who might be longer than you is Ralph Bond.
I'll check him out. Ralph, where does he live?
Ralph Bond, it's okay. He has a heart condition. It's going to be really
easy.
Oh,
no, that's not funny. Oh, I'm sorry, Ralph.
But both of you have been on the show since the mid 2000s, I think. So
I'll have to go back and look. I actually saved an MP3 of the first time I was on the show. That's how big of a deal it was back. It was getting on national
before
radio.
Before it was routine, yeah.
But I didn't mean it like that. But it's a neat thing to get. And we were getting a lot of publicity for the website at that time, the Tech Sport Guy site. By the way, I'm supposed to be promoting that, right? Isn't that the reason I'm here? And and it was just a great experience. I loved it. Craig was awesome. I don't even remember who the co-host was back in those days. Gary.
I don't think I can dredge up any demons if I say their names, but that was either Mr. Kerry Holtzman or that was
I think it was before Kerry.
Mark Lautenblatten or
that might be
Mark
right.
Lautenschlager. There we go.
I think you're right. I think it was Mark. I barely remember him. I'm sorry, Mark, but boy, that's memories. That's way back when.
Yeah,
I'm going to do some research, and I will report back to you whenever my first.
Actually, I think I can find it here. So, like here on, by the way, techguy.org, if you go there, and I think you have this here, and then like somewhere around here, way back, October 15th, 2004. That was your first date.
There you go.
I recalled where to find it. So, October 15th, 2004.
That's a good site you got there. What site is that?
techguy.org. You can find it right there. There's a link at computeramerica.com. Ladies and gentlemen, if you head on over there, anything that we talk about today, articles, news, reviews, topics, anything like that, computeramerica.com in the show notes, and of course, a link to our guest website. Blah, blah, blah. Find us on social media at Computer America. Okay. There we go. There's
nice.
Show opener.
Done.
I feel like we've been talking enough. We can just kind of open with the show and just get started. So I asked Carissa, and of course, just a little bit behind the scenes, a couple minutes before we did the show. First time that you two have had the pleasure of meeting each other. But hey, our correspondents are much more special than just everyday guests, because you guys are you guys are in it for the long haul. So I hope that Carissa and Mike, you two become fast friends.
Oh, yes, I have no doubt.
Definitely.
So, with that being said, and without drudging up even more things from 2004, let's go ahead and get started with today's show. And today's show is, of course, just general topics. Mike is an expert in a lot of things, technology, networking, and so on and so forth. But actually, before we get to the topics that you submitted, and you had a handful, I have a handful, one thing I did want to mention, Tuesday, I put out an article on Computer America, and anyone out there can go out there and read it. But Mike, I know that just judging by how savvy you are with the young folk, that you are an avid TikTok user, clearly.
Yeah, I've heard of the tickety talkety.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So the TikToks, as they are known as, we put out an article about Microsoft and their acquisition of TikTok, or at least the proposed sale. And right. I was trying to think in the article, I kind of posed a question, and I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head. I've never heard of a company saying sell to a US-based company or get banned from the country completely, and you have 30 days to comply. I don't think I've ever heard of something like that. That was strange.
It is, and it's very strange, and I don't fully. I'm not completely. See, this is where we're going to find out how much I like your new co-host. It'll depend on how much she agrees with me on things, but I don't know if I completely agree with it either. I think that they're pushing a little bit too hard, and for not particularly any good reason that I'm aware of. It's just because it's a Chinese company, and granted, that may mean that China can have some influence over it, but I'm not aware of any instance of them actually using such influence. But
and Carissa, before you respond to Mike, I want to list out the data that TikTok collects, and then Carissa, I want your reaction and then Mike's reaction to this. But for those of you who don't know, this is the real problem, and it has to do with not just the API, but the way that the data collection actually happens within the app. A brief rundown includes phone hardware information, which is a lot of this is going to seem pretty basic for a phone app, but check this one out. Phone hardware information, CPU type, screen dimension, memory usage, and hardware IDs. Other installed apps, so it knows other apps, and that's pretty common if there's any interaction between the apps and TikTok. Network information, IP address, MAC address, Wi-Fi access point name, and router MAC address. Jailbreak information, if applicable. GPS pinging, if you've ever been tagged in a location-based post. Local proxy server setup with no authentication. And then even on top of that, they even have buried within the code the ability to run simple scripts. They have just a ton of really invasive properties to an app that is really TikTok based. And Carissa, I'm not sure how much you really know about these apps and what kind of data that a general app collects. It's a lot, but I mean,
that's kind of in depth though. Like that's a lot of location data and a lot of personal stuff that nobody really needs to know. It's just an app. So yeah, that's not.
Yeah,
Not great.
and you're right. And then on top of that, it's stored in Chinese-based servers, which makes sense because, this is a Chinese-based app. But at the same time, there's a lot that they kind of hide within layers of code that, that they really they're as invasive as an app can get while still being a legal, which I guess now it's almost on the verge of being illegal, a legal app. So Carissa and then Mike, what'd you think about all that that it collects?
Doesn't surprise me a bit. It's the same as every other app that's out there. Read the list of what Facebook or Instagram or any other social media app gets from you, and it's that much and much more. Sometimes your whole contact list and as much as they can take. If you're not paying for a service, then you are the product, right? They're trying to learn as much about you as possible, not so much so they can come and get you in some weird fantasy that some people seem to have, but because you are the product, they want to sell you to advertisers. So the more they can learn about you and where you are and what your interests are and what you've been searching for and all of that, the better. And that's what all of these programs do. And I don't know that there's any good reason to pick on TikTok any more than Facebook and Instagram and every other social media app out there that sucks as much data from you as you will let them.
Well, the reason that TikTok gets it as much as any other, and it's the same reason that Huawei gets it. It's the same reason that not HTC, LTE, that was the other company. It's the same reason that they get it. It's just the fact that they are a Chinese-based company. And instead of pulling up a random article, I should probably pull up the one that we wrote, even though I didn't include fancy pictures. But yeah, and
that's my fear. Is
pictures?
I don't no. Well, that's always a fear. I don't really read any books that don't have pictures. But my fear is that I don't think people or companies should be banned just because they're from a particular country, and there may be legitimate reasons to do it. And there's a lot of Huawei made me think of some of the cameras. It's not coming to my brain right now, but there's like 3 major Hikvision and. There's 2 other major brands of security cameras that are now being banned in the U.S. for federal government use, and they expect that will probably,
of course, it's going to trickle down. to yeah.
And in those cases, it's for more of a legitimate reason. It's not because there's some possibility of a hack that's never happened. It's because that those products have been used in these camps over that China is running, and that we're trying to encourage companies not to take part in that. And I get that a little bit more than I get the whole, let's block this app just because the company's in China thing.
Yeah, it's for China. They are, and there's instances where they have used, like, let's say the location-based data to kind of ban people and get people. And there has been some instances of suppression, especially things going on in Hong Kong and the like. But censorship in China just kind of go hand in hand. They're very good at it, and they're very, they're kind of as on the ball as they can be.
As a surveillance.
And that as well. For the U.S., it's very reactionary. And again, it's simply because it's Chinese, which at the end of my article here, I kind of made that point, where does it end? And these are some questions, including, what in most apps, including to the Apple Store, not so much the Android Store as we talked about, Carissa, the Apple App Store, you have to submit your source code, so that they can verify that it's not, straight up malware. And right. I feel like if the source code is submitted and you can see everything that's inside of it, shouldn't that be enough? Shouldn't that be enough that how this thing works inside and out, and yet you're still pulling it for what I think we can all agree here is strictly political? Yeah, political means.
I think that's it. I wonder if all of these TikTok users hadn't gone and pretended to get tickets for his for President Trump's event, if we'd be talking about it right now, if they'd be under this light that they found themselves under. Well, I don't know. Maybe they would, but that's the last part of it, is that the acquisition, and then we're going to move on to a different topic. But TikTok being sold to Microsoft has already made it very clear why they're excited. Do you guys, Carissa, Mike, do you know why Microsoft would be excited to have this? I do not know, but I'm going to take a guess that they are not going to stop collecting information about you.
Agreed.
Carissa?
I completely agree. That's exactly why they're excited.
They're excited. They're
just salty because China has it.
They're just salty because China has it. Boy, that's the best take I've heard all day. But it also has to do with the fact that I'm sorry, not China. Microsoft is excited to have pictures, selfies, videos for artificial intelligence, and it's going to be. It's let's face it. Microsoft is one of the few tech giants that don't have a straight up social media app that they can pull pictures and data from. So to train artificial intelligence, to train their next generation of technology on, TikTok is an amazing source of pictures of people and locations and places to train artificial intelligence. That really, Chris, you hit the nail on the head. Data, and there's a lot of it, and Microsoft would love to have it.
So how does that solve the objection that the app is taking too much data?
It's taking too much data because, as Chris has said, China is doing it instead of the U.S. Yeah. So, as I said, this was going to be the last topic, and then we're going to go ahead and kind of switch topics because this gets into, China bad, America good, America bad, China
right.
good.
That's the part that bothers me. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You got it. And not to say that I agree with everything China's doing. I certainly do not. They're doing some terrible, terrible things. But it's like, I don't. Anyhow. Yeah.
We're here for computers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So with computers,
I don't think there's any good technical reason to dislike the app. I don't think there's any reason to think that it's snooping on you any more than any other social media app that you likely have on your phone.
Well, everyone's social media, but what about other things? Like, for example, I'm going to give you a great example here. I was at my friend's house, and she had these little planters that she put her little succulents in, and I was like, oh my God, I was really specific. And I said, oh, these little owl planters are so cute. Where'd you get them from? And she was like, oh, I got them off of Amazon, blah, 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 blah. She's got a smart TV. Everybody in the house has a smartphone. And I get on Amazon 2 days later, and it shows up in my suggested items, a specific thing that she had purchased. So, like, forget TikTok. How about Amazon spying on you with all your Alexas and your smart TVs? And
I have some stuff here. So the first thing is, like, people underestimate how much location-based data really matters. Yes. And we have had housekeepers obviously come to the house, and other people have made this observation, and they immediately think our microphones are always listening to us. It's the televisions that are always listening to us, because we started getting ads in Spanish, pop-up ads and side ads and things like that. But what really happened was that their phones were connected to our Wi-Fi network, and they said this is a Spanish speaker on a Spanish setting device that connected to this Wi-Fi address. These people here speak Spanish, and they started serving us with Spanish ads, not because they were listening, but because of location-based data. And Carissa, I think that the same thing happened to you.
Really interesting.
You were in a location that bought these planters, and on your device, you are probably now getting similar results that someone at that location bought from their Amazon.
And you're probably even social media friends with this person. So that is another point of, of connection that they can use for it. But you're exactly right, Ben. Well said. And I've talked to so many people all the time who assume exactly that it's, voice-based stuff. And that's much harder for them to do. Yeah. And of course, it would be a huge liability if it ever came out that they were doing it. But why would they bother doing it when they have all this other information, all this other data at their fingertips that they can use? True. And yeah, you hit it.
Yeah,
we should keep Ben around. I know Chris and we were planning this.
I didn't think this was a voting situation. Mike, you said you just made me realize you set up a majority situation. There is now a majority that is not just me. This is not good.
That's why he missed the show yesterday. He was talking to me.
Well,
against you.
Maybe
we're gonna give Ben just another day.
Maybe if we go by weight, I'm still the majority in this room, so we're gonna go with that. Now, with that being said, our next topic, and I like this one, Chris. I believe I sent them to you, but for everyone else out there, you can check the show notes or check out the video. But this one from The Verge: scientists rename human genes to stop Microsoft Excel from misreading the mistakes. And wait, 1 second. For chat room, just vote for Craig by proxy. No, that's not what you do for it. Don't vote for Craig. Vote for Ben for president. So, with that being said, though, this one I like this one because it shows that obviously the way that we reference genes are, they're pretty much set in stone, but as they said in the article, changing the way Excel works may be even more of a monumental task than changing the human genome. So, Mike, if you want to go...
I love the way they said that. Yeah, well, it's an obvious thing. Excel has built into it that whenever you're typing something in, it's trying to detect what type of information you're typing in. So if you type in something like MAR1, it thinks obviously you mean March 1. If you type in DEC1, you mean December 1st. And it's converting these into dates so that what's actually saved, if you look up at the top where the formula bar is, it doesn't save what you typed in. It doesn't save in MAR1, DEC1. It's saving December 1st, March 1st. In a date format, and that creates all kinds of problems if you try to run statistics on that information, or if you try to run formulas with that information. It's calculating that, it's graphing that, it's looking at that as though it's a date, and there in Excel's defense, there is a very simple solution around this. You just use the single quote mark before you type it in to tell that this is text. This is not something you should try to format. If you are ever using Excel, by the way, and you're trying to put in a number or something that you don't want Excel to try to convert to something smartly, just use a single quote and type in your thing. The quote will not be shown in the Excel sheet. It just knows then that this is just straight text. Don't try to do anything funny. But that said, it's even easier just to, I suppose, is it easier? I don't know how easy this is to change the nomenclature. So now they have officially announced that the Human Gene Nomenclature Committee, which of course there is one, right, has decided that they're going to use, instead of SEPT1, which looks an awful lot like September, it's SEPTIN1, Septin 1, and March 1 is now March F1. And there's all these other ones that Wars is now Wars 1. I'm not sure how that one got in there. Mars 1. But it's just kind of a funny thing. And I don't know that this problem is specific to Excel, really. I mean, it's obviously the most obvious one we're all familiar with. But I would imagine a lot of data saving or databases would look at Sept1 and Mar1 and think, oh, obviously it's a date. Or humans even looking at that could easily be confused. So I'm not sure it's a bad idea anyway.
And the only reason I can think of why they are putting this out, like you said, just putting the single quote mark or something like that, is that they need a unified way to send data to one another. And if everyone decided to, kind of get around it in their own way, then it would be harder to read. So they need one way that works for everyone.
It does need to be standardized.
Yeah.
Right.
So this seems to be it. And of course, much like Forset in the chat room, and I'm not a power user. I mean, I took a class on Excel in college. I excelled in it, and then I forgot everything about it. Thank you. No, actually, I don't have a rim shot. I don't have a rim shot. But anyways, I took a class on it. Yes, I forgot everything about Excel, but I know that power users can do amazing things in Excel. I think you can even play Doom in Excel if you're good enough. I think someone coded that.
I'm not sure that's true. Is it really? I'm not sure. Now I think you might be telling the truth the way you followed that up.
I think you can, and I'm going to try.
I thought you were completely exaggerating. There is some kind of a game in it. I don't think it's Doom, but I think there is some, or at least there used to be an Easter egg where you could go in and see like the credits of the people who wrote it. Wasn't that Excel that had like a 3D game? Like it was more like Wolfenstein, I think. But someone needs to do some research and let us know. We'll count on the chat room to inform us on that. Speaking of which, I'm going to join the chat room now.
Yeah, here's Doom completely in Excel spreadsheets and formula and that kind of thing.
Oh my God, that is not at all what I was imagining. What the heck?
Yeah. So and of course there's portals. There's yeah.
How?
Portals,
I don't understand.
Yeah,
Again,
I don't understand that either.
Power users are amazing, and you can see the thousands of little spreadsheets, and of course, the big red things are monsters, and you can click, and
This is craziness. That is not at all what I was thinking of. I believe, and I could be mistaken, but I believe it was Excel that had credits, hidden Easter egg thing that was a 3-dimensional world, but not like this. It was a very happy, like cloudy one, if memory serves correctly.
I would certainly believe it. So with that being said, though, and again, the main point of that story was the fact that it was easier to rename these things, I guess, in a professional sense. I'm sure that they could have said that, this column, like if it was one person's problem, they could just say this column has no formatting, don't reformat, there's blank, whatever. But I guess, hey, it's easier to do it this way. So very, very interesting. So
you want to know how old I am?
What's that?
It was Excel 97 is where this Easter egg lived.
Excel 97. Good year.
Yeah,
Good year for Office.
Oh no! Don't even.
Good year for Office. Hey, what can I say? Next came XP, and we all know how that went in Office 2000. So, with that being said, let's see. So, some of the other articles you have here, I feel like maybe that $10 million reward would have been more applicable just after the whole China versus US thing. Let's talk about this, and actually a teen hacking into, well, I guess this, and this is more like social engineering because we talk about cybersecurity so often. Not so much hacking as Zoom calls are just notoriously easy to use, but because they're easy to use, they're easy to invade and get into the wrong one that you're not supposed to, or get people in that you're not supposed to. Carissa, back on Monday, we talked about a story where a teen was responsible, a 17-year-old, Mike, I'm not sure if you heard about this, but a 17-year-old was responsible for the massive Twitter hack, quote unquote, although someone just let him in the back door and pushed his Bitcoin wallet, and it was a big Bitcoin scam. He was like a 17-year-old. He hung out on forums. He got his start selling duped or faked or hacked Minecraft items. He is as scum of the earth as a teenage person can be. Like, he was selling like fake V-Bucks for Fortnite, things like that. You know, that's that other teenagers.
He's from Florida. What do you want from him?
Right. I was trying to figure out how Ben was how old Ben was whenever I heard this.
Yeah, well, and as someone from Florida, she's not wrong. But
hey, me too.
Yeah, us too. So, with that being said, though, teenagers are so precocious, I guess would be the word. Mike, you found this article, Twitter hacked teens court date, Zoom bombed with, well, pornography. Always fun. So what caught your attention?
Oh, what didn't? So yeah, and this has been going on since we've been in this weird pandemic times. There's been all sorts of cases of people Zoom bombing either school events or court dates or politicians' events, their town halls, and it just happens over and over again, to the point where Zoom started, by default increasing security, that by default that your room has a random number to it, and by default there's a password enabled on your room, and by default you have a waiting room where you have to allow people in, and you can turn all of those things off and make your room less secure if you want, but Zoom changed them since this pandemic started, since these Zoom bombings took place. And essentially what it is that if someone figures out where your Zoom call is being held, if they know the address of it, the number of it, the meeting ID of it, then they can join it. And instead of broadcasting their face as I am to you, they can broadcast whatever they please, which oftentimes is not something appropriate for the event.
Which is what you are not pleased by, right?
Right, exactly. Here, I'll demonstrate. No, I'm kidding.
No.
And so that's the issue. And someone joked in this article here. One of the reporters said, next time they'll require a password for the Zoom meeting. And the difficulty in it is, of course, with just requiring a password, is if that whoever is joining the meeting needs to have that password and has to have that meeting ID. So that's presumably being sent out to all of the members, perhaps of the press, who need to be involved in it, because a lot of these meetings do have open door or sunlight, or sunshine policies that are required. They have to be sent out to, obviously the defendant and the prosecutor and all of that, so they can join into it, and oftentimes not sent just to that person, but to their IT person and to the secretary and to the whatever, and it gets passed on to the person who needs it, and somewhere in there some goofball got a hold of it, whether by whatever means, and it's really hard to prevent that.
Sorry, jump in.
No, you got it.
Jump in there, but really, it just takes one of those people, and most of the Zoom bombing that we've seen has been purposeful. They say here, here is my class, here is this presentation, join this, and like they go out and they tell people to join this. So yeah, someone purposely did this, most likely.
Oh yeah, right, almost certainly. Yeah, it's just depending on exactly how they got the data from it. how they found the. I mean, they didn't hack Zoom. That's the thing that's I think is misreported.
No,
People think they hacked into Zoom and that they can do this, but someone had to give them either intentionally or unintentionally these codes to connect to it.
They're using Zoom as it was intended, much like the hacking of the 2016 presidential election in social media. They were using social media and ads the exact way that they were set up, that they could target specific people with certain information that was unverified. And hey, they put in their debit card, they put in their credit card, and they got their admittedly bad messaging to the right people. I mean, it's again using these products the way they are designed. It's crazy.
The problem is that whoever is the host of the Zoom needs to know how to operate it. They need to know how to go in there,
and they don't so often, do they?
Don't. That's the problem. They need to know how to authorize the viewer, the participants to be participants and the viewers to be viewers, and how to kick people out when they need to, and they don't.
Right. So
I'm sure most people think it's a plug and play situation. So like, why would they even bother with that? Because it's just, you click it, it opens up in a window, like you don't have any settings. So maybe people just don't even know that they can do that.
That's part of it, and we're at that point, right, where we're just all trying to learn this new thing, and it's people who are not IT people who are being forced in the world we're living in right now to figure out how to use these tools, and they just need more training. They need to understand it, and it kind of, I guess, we'll go into maybe our next story, Ben, but it's the social part of it. It's the social engineering part of it. It's not that someone hacked into the system. It's that people, abused the people who had the information. Mm-hmm. For lack of a better way of saying that.
To bring up one more humorous instance, and then we'll go ahead and move on. But I think it was like this year, or it was sometime last year, I believe. There was a conference that they wanted their participants to join in, and it was a big convention center. They had displays set up, and essentially, as they walked through the place, they said, hashtag whatever convention, whatever, and people could take a selfie, take a picture, take whatever they want, and they could have it put up on these giant digital displays as the convention's way of saying, look at your fellow convention members, kind of use this hashtag and get your image up here. And really, anything with the hashtag that was attached to a Twitter picture would be put up on the display. And one person put up the hashtag and said, all right, folks, let your imagination go wild. And they had to shut the entire convention down because I guess the people who set it up weren't there at the actual convention. It was the IT people beforehand. And they just had to shut the whole thing down because it was hijacked. It was hilarious. It really was.
Yeah, I was working on a website for a government website recently, and in my real world, we do a lot of web development type stuff. And one of the things they wanted to do is have people be able to post Instagrams and have a hashtag that would then show those photos on this website of this location.
Did you advise against that?
Yeah, I was like, that's a great idea, but it needs to be approved. Like, you need to go in there, see all of the ones, approve the ones you want to have displayed, because people like Ben are terrible and will abuse that. There's people in Florida who just...
I cannot be held responsible for my actions, and Mike made me do it. But I will say that so there's that one. And again, it looks like they even got Krebs to Brian Krebs. Good guy. We were just talking about him the other day. So let's see. So they decided not to lower his bail. So that stinks. I guess the judge wasn't in a very good mood after that whole thing happened. So... unfortunate.
Worth it.
Yeah, maybe even he was the one who did it. So there you go.
And I assume you guys already talked about this Twitter hack a bit, right? About how he got into it, that, using social engineering and that kind of good stuff.
So for everyone out there who's listening that, needs a quick synopsis, and you can add to this, Mike, as you see fit, but the 17-year-old who is now accused, I think like 3 other people, they had contact with some of the contractors behind the scenes at Twitter. They use independent contract. Turns out that, they can hire someone on a temporary basis, and they give them the keys to the castle. So there were I think they said...
What could go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. They said that there were 70 to 80 independent contractors at the time who had that backdoor access.
God level. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And by the way, what that means is that they can go in and send tweets as any verified account, which is crazy. Right. I didn't even know they had that access. I thought it would, having that kind of backdoor would just be rife for abuse, and turns out it was. So they found one of the contractors. They paid him a bunch of money, I think, or just convinced them, either buddy, and they blasted out this singular thing: send Bitcoin to this wallet. And turns out no one did. I mean, it was a very, very
not no one. They made some money, didn't they?
I have not heard about any substantial amount of money that they made.
I had heard a couple $100,000. I think I heard that like $130,000 was sent through it, and then like another $200,000 was stopped by whatever company that they were using to pull the Bitcoin into US dollars.
Wasn't that the previous offense?
Pardon me?
Yeah, I think, and Chris is right. I think that was his history. He had stolen Bitcoin before in multiple things, and I think he had Chris. It was like a 3-year probation from him doing it the first time.
Or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, he was on probation, and again, this kid's only 17, and he was found guilty of that at 15. And of course, he's a minor, so we can't really track him for too long. But yeah, Mike, I believe that Bitcoin theft was in his distant 2-year past. No one could have seen this coming again, but yeah, he sent out this huge blast, send Bitcoin to this account here, and yeah, they eventually caught him. And living on his own, had a Lamborghini or something like that, living in a $1 million condo. He was living the good life and being
a quick way to get caught.
Yeah, and being a bad hombre. That was it.
According to the Wikipedia, so for whatever that's worth, I just typed it in there, and it says 300. I typed in what I'm about to read. Get it? That was a Wikipedia joke. But where's your button? 320 transactions had taken place to the one wallet address, and the Bitcoin value was more than $110,000 to be deposited in one account before the scam messages were removed by Twitter.
Okay, so they got 110.
To be fair, $110,000 for the scale of this. It's not nothing, but for the scale of this, for the power they had, that kind of is nothing. Like, how much would some people pay to have a tweet sent out or to have access to the DMs? Like, that's even the bigger thing, is these guys had the backdoor access. They could send these messages, and it's kind of a stupid thing they did. Like, what's $100,000 for what they had access to? Imagine being able to go to Russia and say, hey, do you want to see all the DMs of all of the politicians on Twitter? Because we can do that. What's that worth to you?
my example that I give for the audience is that imagine if they were smart, and imagine if they had, instead of what they did, if they said, waited until the day before the election and sent out Joe Biden is dropping out of the presidential race, and then they had 100,000 verified, hundreds of millions of followers all saying, best of luck, you tried your best, right. He's dropping out for sure. Elon Musk says, yes, I'm backing this up. Kanye says, man, I hate to see my friend Joe Biden drop out. Imagine the kind of confusion that would cause.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You could do all kinds of things.
Especially since Kanye doesn't support Biden, so that would be a shock too.
I chose Elon Musk. I chose Elon Musk and Kanye because they are the craziest Twitters. Give them a follow on Twitter.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I love Elon Musk, but oh my gosh, there's some people who we need to filter tweets before they go out. I'm not going to mention the president and things, but there's some people who just need a filter. And Elon, my buddy, I'm sorry. Sometimes. The other thing that worries me here, Ben and Carissa, is I wonder who else has had this access and has been smarter about it. Right. Because these kids got in who, and they're just some kids from Florida. I mean, no offense to anyone, on the radio right now who's in Florida, but imagine a state, a country out there with real, hackers, what they could do if these kids can get in. Who else has had access to this and has been reading everyone's DMs and no one's been the wiser?
It's probably the best case scenario that again, this was so poorly executed, because now at least they know that Twitter realizes maybe backdoor access to everyone's tweets and DMs should be reserved for background checked, verified. We have their phone number at least,
and maybe
users.
Only a handful of people have the key to approve that. Like one of those things where hey boss, I need access to this, and maybe there's a dozen or 2 dozen or whatever people who can approve that request, and
why would you even need that power? Why can't you just have the power to delete tweets if you need to? Why do you need to get into their account or change your name or disguise yourself?
Yeah, there was a pretty big uproar, and I don't know how many people are users of Reddit. I mean, to be fair, it's like
I
the
love
second. Reddit. Yeah, and not going to get into the problems with Reddit, but I will say that a couple of years ago, Mike, and I don't know if you were following Reddit back, a couple of years ago, but there was this big uproar when the founder, CEO, head programmer of Reddit, the guy who started it all, he had to step down because he did like an AMA kind of thing, which are pretty popular on Reddit, and someone was giving him criticism, and he went in behind.
For those who don't know, AMAs Ask Me Anything. It's like
yes.
Interview with everybody. You can post a question and they will likely answer it.
Yes, and they were posting some kind of criticism and asking him to respond, and of course they were being very juvenile and very personal. But essentially, he went behind the scenes of Reddit and altered, I guess, either the source code, or whatever, and he for all purposes, all references to it, whatever, he could make it say whatever he wanted it to say, and people were like, wait. You have that power? Because, everyone from presidential candidates to high profile celebrities to, people of all walks of life, they use the service and they never knew that, Reddit can alter text and there be no indication whatsoever that it's been altered behind the scenes. And that was the problem, was that there was not a clear symbol that says this was altered by an admin or anything like that. That caused a pretty big uproar. He had to step down for that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And of course you can do that. I mean, with anything that's saved in a database, someone who has access to it can go in there and change it. But there should be safeguards to prevent them from doing that, and there should be policies in place to prevent it from doing it. And in his case, he was goofing around with some of the people who were criticizing him, and apparently it was two-way stuff. But what it doesn't matter. It was misuse of it and just not appropriate.
Yeah, and policies for seriously, because that's infringing on your free speech, right? Because somebody's going through and changing your words. That shouldn't be
right, and it's still attributed to you. Yeah, exactly right. And I was going to make another point too, but I lost it. I need to.
Well, no, and again, that was the main point. Was that whenever you edit a message on Reddit, you get that asterisk, and it says this has been edited on this date. The lack of anything like that just kind of shows that, hey, what if he decided to change Bill Gates is a very avid user, Bill Gates or whatever. So there you go. That's social media editing, that kind of thing. And I don't know how we got from there from Zoombombing, but there you go.
We did it.
Yeah, we have traversed the unknown. Let's go back and go ahead and talk about not the $10 million bounties, because, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to make $10 million, go point at the Russians and say they did it, and you'll get $10 million from someone. But that's a whole story. I don't think
which is a lot more money than you get from hacking Twitter. It's only $100K for that.
Yeah, exactly. Point your finger at the right people. You'll get very, very wealthy. Let's talk about, and I think it was, sorry, I have so many links in front of me. You sent me a number of them, and let's talk about this one real quick without getting too much into politics, but this is, let's see, this was yesterday's big news, but it had to do with the fact that President Trump and I believe it was his campaign manager and his campaign to get reelected, they tweeted a video of the president making a claim about COVID, which is a very touchy subject, about COVID and kids and being immune to it and that kind of thing, which has not been verified by anyone. Long story short, and Mike, you can go ahead and add anything you want to this, but I believe they pulled a direct video from Fox News and put it back on social media, and the social media, Twitter, banned them for 12 hours for spreading misinformation.
Yeah, and Facebook pulled it as well. And you're exactly right. It was posted by Team Trump, which is the political group who's running the campaign, and it had a quote in there from Trump in the video where he said, "Children are almost, and I would almost say definitely, but almost immune from this disease." And he continues to push for the reopening of schools. And of course, but thankfully, I think it's a good thing. The social media company said, that's misinformation, that telling people that children are almost or definitely immune from the disease is not accurate. And so they pulled them, just like they would pull any other wacko, conspiracy theory video out there that is claiming dangerous things.
Right. Carissa?
I don't want to get into it.
That is the smartest thing anyone said on the show so far. I love it.
I've got opinions.
Well, that makes for good radio, though.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
yeah,
I think I'll go ahead and jump articles, and that even that little bit of time that you were talking, Mike, gave me enough time to kind of refocus. And I wanted to talk about this one. Elon Musk, in particular, he's well known for his many different venture capitals. This one, though, is not directly about it, but Elon Musk is a great way to segue into it because he has the project called Starlink. And despite Chris's assumption that it's going to completely block out the Earth and the view of stars, and the sun, but turns out Amazon is going to get into this as well, Carissa. So, you can blame both of these companies. I got to say, Amazon is investing $10 billion to compete against SpaceX in satellite broadband. And Mike, I think a good place to kind of start for you would be to just kind of give us the implication of broadband, internet, satellite based, and what Elon Musk and now what Amazon, they both have the same goal, and what you think this means for people.
Have you ever watched the episode of The Simpsons where Mr. Burns blocks out the sun in order to? No, it's not exactly like that. But what it is, it's a very noble goal. They're trying to bring the internet and therefore worldwide communications to the whole world. There are a lot of areas in the world where you don't have good internet, or perhaps any internet, even in the U.S. What did she say, Florida?
I said, or water.
Or water. Well, there's only so much we can do. There's priorities. There's what's the chart of priorities. First, it's internet, and then water, and then food. And I always get that confused.
In the time of COVID, I believe you're right.
And shelter somewhere way down. After Netflix.
My internet and my internet connection during COVID and this whole isolation period. Oh my God, it's. There's never been a more convenient time to have a pandemic, and I'm not saying that there's ever a good time, but man, we lucked out.
You're very right. I mean, we live in the day and age and location to be sitting at home and not only be able to be entertained 24/7 and communicate with one another 24/7, but in many cases work from home as well. I mean, not everyone is that lucky, but a larger percentage than would have been 10 or 20 years ago, or even longer. Anyhow, so the idea on this is they're going to launch many little, small, low orbit satellites that can provide wireless internet to ground stations. So you could have a little antenna on your house or your car or anything that can have a clear view of the sky and be able to pick up the internet, very similar to the way you would pick up XM radio or Sirius XM or Sirius radio. It's a little bit different, but very, very similar idea. And there's many of them and lower orbit, so it works better than TV satellite, and it importantly allows both uplink and downlink. There are a lot of people who live way out in the boonies, even around here in Pennsylvania, imagine that, who don't have high-speed internet and they use existing satellite internet, and they don't get this. They say, well, what's the big deal? I already have satellite internet at home. But in most cases, those are downlink satellite internet, but uplink over a phone line. So you have a very slow upload speed and a very delayed download speed, but a big bandwidth. I mean, relatively speaking, you might have 2 or 5 megabits, which is not much, but it's a lot better than you would get over a phone line in the middle of nowhere. And so the idea on this is that it's actually going to be true high-speed, very fast internet available everywhere. And for me, the most exciting thing is that means fewer monopolies. Like if you live, as I do, where you can get Comcast or not have internet, it would be really sweet to be able to have a second option. And a lot of places have at least 2 or 3 options, especially if you live in a nice place like Florida, perhaps. But here in the middle of nowhere, you have no other option. If you want internet, you have Comcast. There's no DSL here where I live. There's no fiber. There's no anything else. And I think it would be really a good thing for consumers, even just in the U.S., to be able to have choices that would come out from this.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, Chris. I don't know if you want to add on to that, but I just want to jump in here real quick and say that when it comes to satellite internet, Mike, you're right about the speeds, and in some instances they're very, very poor. The congestion is just crazy, and the problem is that even though it's I can't say that word on the internet, a really bad experience, for internet, it's used by a lot of companies that have monopolies in certain areas as, hey, look, they have choice. They have 3 different satellite internet, and they have us, the cable provider. That can
It's
give
not a
them
monopoly.
internet.
They can get dial-up.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, you can have 1.5 megabits DSL in your home. DSL, it's the future. They give you that option, but it's not really an option. So satellite has gotten a really bad name, I guess. Elon Musk and, well, I should say SpaceX, because I think it is its own company now. SpaceX, Amazon now with Bezos, and I think Blue Origin is the name of their spacefaring operations. And then also I pulled up this article. We're not going to get into it, but the point is Google is also looking into getting an internet satellite-based internet going. And I asked this in the chat room, and the resounding answer was, of course, data. Like, you know, what do they get by competing instead of working together? They all want the data that is generated by not just a continent, not just by a state or a location, but the entire world that could potentially connect to a satellite-based internet. Even though it might be a good thing overall, it's a very profitable thing if they get it up and running.
Sure. And if you can launch 500 or 1,000 satellites, which sounds like a small thing, that's where they're starting. I think they, let's see, Amazon's project is aiming to launch 3,000 satellites for Earth orbit, but they're beginning with 578 of them. And that becomes a little bit of a problem, right? If you have all of these companies each launching thousands of satellites, you want to make sure they don't bump anything. And it also has the downside, as any astronomer will tell you, of blocking to take nice, low or slow shutter speed photos of galaxies far away when you have, hundreds of little satellites that are going to be flying through your long exposure. So that's the biggest criticism people had.
Yeah. So from my understanding, and Chris raised that exact same point, and it's completely valid, because that's the first thing that I think people, kind of get into is, it's going to ruin the view. But from my understanding, these things are so small. It'd be like trying to spot a microwave from like another state. Like, it's a very, very far distance. It's a very, very small object. And I know that even at extreme magnifications that scientists use from land-based telescopes, you can still catch that. But it's going to be very, very hard to see them. And I think the majority, it shouldn't bother anyone, because it's, these long exposures, just a quick blip of like a microwave size satellite going past the viewfinder doesn't really affect anything. And of course, when the solar panels are pointed to the sun and not at the earth, they're going to be otherwise completely invisible to most technologies. You're right, if that is a problem for scientists, that needs to be addressed. But so far, I'm hoping it's not.
Yeah, I don't know enough about that area of science to know how much of a problem it really. Heard the complaints, but I don't know how valid they are. And we have so many issues with doing long range views into space from Earth in with the atmosphere, that so much. That's why we built these giant telescopes in orbit anyway. So I don't know. I honestly don't know how much of a problem that is or not. But having faster internet would be really sweet.
Yeah, and of course, internet everywhere. Chris, could you imagine being on any mountain, in the middle of any ocean, in the middle of any desert, and being able to just pull out your phone and say, "Hey, come find me, help! I need help!" And you having internet access, and you can order a pizza. That is the dream.
Get it with your Amazon drone to the top of the mountain.
Exactly. It's certainly possible. And I do think that a technology, just kind of as humans, if we're getting even higher brained about this, it's probably something that needs to happen, to have everyone on Earth have the ability to connect to the internet. And
I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, I wonder what else they could do with it. Can they do like weather prediction, or like what else could they bundle in with that that's already out in the orbit that would benefit,
Well, and even Earth-based things, just having the capability of having fast data anywhere on Earth could open up a lot of possibilities as far as different scientific research, or who knows, or collecting extra data.
Yep.
Well, I hope that
if you're in Antarctica and being able to be on the internet would be helpful.
Yeah, and of course I could fulfill my dream of living in a cabin in the Canadian wilderness. That was from the chat room. I hope that you can live in the middle of nowhere one day and not have to interact with anyone, but still get all the pleasures of talking online. So with that being said, let's see, we have like 5 minutes left. I might find another story, but before we do, I wanted to get into something a little bit more personal, and that is I have an Amazon device, a microphone sitting right next to me. And Carissa, I'm going to ask you first, do you have any experience with smart speakers?
I've read about them. I read all the reviews and I see all the different ones that come out. But
do you have one?
Not from Amazon. I've got a little Bluetooth one for my music, and that's it. I don't know how I feel about having one.
No, it's just from Google, or
no, it's just a random one. It literally just plays music. Like, that's as far as it goes for speakers for me.
And Mike, if I'm recalling our past conversations, do you have a Google House?
Yeah, so I used to have Amazon Echo around. I'm holding up my new Google. What's it called, a Mini? Is that what they call them? I can't bring it any closer to the microphone or to the camera because it's actually plugged in. But so I have one of those, and they just sent me another one recently within the last couple of weeks, and I was like, oh, where am I going to put this one? So it's sitting in the box upstairs. I'm like, I don't really have another room. I already have one in the bedroom, which is really helpful because I have, home automation lights and stuff. So when I'm going to bed, I can say, hey, so-and-so, turn off all the lights. And so I use it there. I don't mind it. And I was actually considering, I was like, well, maybe I need it in my bathroom, in the master bathroom, for the same reason. When I'm getting ready for bed, I can talk to it and ask about the weather. And I was like, that might be over the line. There might be a line that might be crossing it.
So I bring this up because I have been playing with my Amazon powered one, and I'm going to use it, but I have found this thing to be so much more fun after I found out about routines. And I don't know what Google has their set at, if you want to fill me in on that, Mike. But essentially, it's when you say a certain phrase or a certain set of words or even just a word, it will do a series of tasks. And it's really opened up a lot of possibilities for mine. Is there something like that for the Google devices?
Yeah, there is, and they call it routines in there as well. But as I recall, it's far more limited than what you could do on Amazon. I had Amazon. I had it set up to my lights and everything as well, and I believe I could get a heck of a lot more out of it through Amazon. I think there's a lot more ability to customize things. I think with the Google one, if I remember correctly, I can go in there and hit check boxes of I want these things to happen when I run this routine, but you can't, like, for instance, when I go to bed at night, I want it to turn on the upstairs light first, and then, because it takes it a couple seconds to turn on, and then tell me the weather, and then turn off the rest of the lights. And you can't do that. You can have one event that affects lights, and you can have one event that affects this type of event. And so that is a disappointment for me.
I only have a couple of these. I'm going to show them on the camera. This is going to be, kind of like a visual thing more than anything else. But I think I can hold up my phone here, and my green screen is perfectly blocking this. But yeah, I have a number of these, including Intruder Alert, Romantic, Bless the Rains, and Pit. Pit is kind of like my preferred settings. It's very dark. It's very poorly illuminated. But let's say, so if I say, kind of Amazon's code phrase and say bless the rains, and I can have it play right here. This is if I were, and it changes the lights, obviously for that. Nice. And then it immediately starts playing. Well, I have these, it goes to all the different colors and that kind of thing. It immediately starts playing Africa, Toto by Africa. Africa by Toto, which I'm sure you can hear that in the background. Let's see. Let's go.
Is that your alarm in the morning? Is that just the lights go off and then your music starts playing and you're up?
Yeah, no, actually I should set up, kind of a morning one, but essentially I just want to say everyone out there that has one of these, and I'm currently in the dark, so I apologize to everyone out there, but if you ever play with routines, that is just the perfect way to automate, and it was super easy, super simple, and it's almost like an entirely new product when I learned about routines. It was amazing. So,
I'm afraid I don't have too much more to add to that. The only routine I really use is the goodnight one. I think there's a couple other built into it, but I really haven't used it. But
The other one I have is romantic, and even though I pretty much live alone, so it doesn't really affect anything, but it turns into like a romantic kind of red and pink light setting, and it starts playing Barry White in the background. So that's about all I got. Yeah, it's very, very fun. But there you go. So with that being said, we have like 2 minutes left. Some of the stories that we did not get to.
So I got to tell you real quick. I was just going in the app here, and I was going to try and bring up my routine for good night so I could see what it does or how it's programmed. And apparently, I accidentally hit the button to run the routine. So right now in my home, it's upstairs telling my wife good night and the weather for tomorrow and turning off all the lights. So. I take it back. Yeah. Let her be confused. But I also got to say that I have another one that says intruder alert. So if I say intruder alert, it flashes red and blue and starts playing the Cops theme song. So
Nice.
yeah, I'm getting very basic with it. Like I'm sure there's a lot more that I could do with it, but there you go. So with that being said, some of the other articles that we didn't, instead of talking about, playing with your home automation, there were things like this one, massive 20 gigabit, even though 20 gigs does not sound like a lot of data, 20 gigabit Intel IP data breach floods the internet, mentions backdoors for some of your favorite, technologies and things like that. Very, very important stuff that we probably should have covered. But hey, gives you a reason to come back to Computer America, and we'll cover all this and more tomorrow. Mike, I want to thank you so much for being on the show, and Carissa, of course, you did amazing, and looking forward to continue have you guys on. Mike, Carissa, how was your first show together?
Wonderful. Looking forward to some more.
Yeah, me too. It was pretty good. It was fun.
Perfect.
A heck of a lot better than just having that Ben guy.
Yeah.
Right.
I hate that guy. Now, and of course, that's, ladies and gentlemen.
Nice.
Exactly. And ladies and gentlemen, if you miss any part of the show, check out the podcast, check out the video portion. All of our past shows, future shows in YouTube in particular, in the past year or so, we've started to categorize them. So if you want to see more of Mike in particular, we have a whole playlist of just Mike's appearances, and you can see all of them. I know, it's very, very simple and convenient.
That is awesome.
Yeah, thank you. So with that being said, everyone, thank you for tuning into Computer America. Until next time, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Oh, and bye, chat. Thank you.